When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
We absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people are vetted.
Good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago?
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
What's going on, guys? So today is Sunday, and what better way to start the week than to have JD Vance absolutely cooking this radical leftist Margaret Brennan over on CBS Fake News over on Face the Nation. Okay, so this lady has a history of being a radical leftist shill, a puppet, an arm of the radical left, and today is no different. Of course, JD Vance does what JD Vance does best. One of the reasons he was hired is to cook these leftists to their face so that they can't get these radical left messages out to all these people each and every single day without rebuttals. And his entire purpose is to make them look dumb, as is mine. Without further ado, let's get into it.
And Donald J. Trump is the person who determines who his cabinet is, not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance.
The Senate will
Tulsi
ultimately
Gabbard's,
decide.
Well, the Senate will provide advice and consent, as is its constitutional obligation, but I feel confident that Tulsi Gabbard will ultimately get through. Two things.
Did this lady just try to imply that Donald Trump's appointees, like that JD Vance didn't know that Trump's appointees get confirmed by the Senate? Like, are you freaking, was that an attempt at a fact check or something?
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need.
But before JD Vance even continues, I want to remind everybody that Donald Trump's inauguration was on Monday. Today is Sunday. It has been less than a week. Where was all of this smoke for Sleepy Joe for 4 years straight? He had years. They give Donald Trump less than a week? You have gotta freaking be joking. And they wonder why they're losing relevance. Come on.
If you look
So
at our
grocery prices
slate
aren't gonna
of
come
executive
down.
orders, no, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days.
Exactly.
I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years. It's been an incredible breakneck pace.
What people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive.
Cook. These people never want to put two and two together. Okay, sometimes if you're trying to get to 10, you got to do 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 10. You can't just do 2 plus 2 is 4 and then stop right there. You got to add a couple more 2s in there. It's like this lady acts like she doesn't understand the concept of supply chains and the need to distribute, the cost of employees to work at these organizations and all of the benefits that they're going to get, all the regulation that they got to deal with. It all culminates together and it's a bunch of gears turning all together. And the problem is if you start having a couple gears don't work, then everything else has to overcompensate and you get sky high prices. I don't understand what's so hard to understand. But this is like economics. If you read an economics book, in the first chapter, they're going to explain this. Like not somewhere toward the back of the book, it's at the beginning.
How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
Well, the flurry of executive orders, most of them weren't about the economy. Many of them
were, though, Margaret. We had, I think we've had.
What do you mean most of them were? How many of them do you need to be about the?
We've
a
taken
promise
over,
of tariffs by February 1st.
We've taken over 200 executive actions, some executive orders, other executive actions.
Insane.
Again, this is in less than a week, and a lot of them were focused on the economy, bringing investment into our country and lowering energy prices.
How you gonna say? I'm still flabbergasted. What do you mean? Most of them weren't about the. So you're acknowledging some of them were about the economy. How many of them need to be about the economy? All of them? Like, what the hell?
We've also focused on safety, restoring public safety, ending weaponization of the Department of Justice. We've done a lot. And I think the president is to be commended for actually coming in and doing something with this incredible mandate the American people gave him. He's not sitting in the Oval Office doing nothing. He's doing the American people's business. And I think they're going to see a lot of good effects from it.
Well, a lot of these announcements have yet to take effect.
Sure.
The president did say he wants to do something with an executive order in relation to federal emergency response. He said he may reform or eliminate FEMA. Instead of sending emergency responders, he may start to send a percentage of money to states to take care of themselves. But, you know, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Oh, Margaret,
in their arsenal. And
I wish
how
that they...
will states who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying we're going to leave anybody behind.
Wait a minute. Are we trying to say that the states are like incompetent or something? I mean, if you have the money, couldn't you like hire and train people so that they do have the expertise? Like, what in the world are you talking about?
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Well, let me address this. Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration.
Boom.
But let me just address
What is guys? I ain't gonna lie, this is a hard watch because they're trying to act as though going into places to get criminals, be it into a home, a church, a school, is some sort of bad thing. It was never a bad thing when they were doing it to U.S. citizens. So why the hell is an illegal immigrant? It's like they're in people's minds. They're trying to warp it into people's minds like this is such an inhumane thing. You went into a church and got a convicted rapist out of the church. They were trying to change the ways, trying to pray to the Lord and repent, and maybe they felt like that was good enough. No, it's not good enough. And you need to get the hell up out of the country.
This particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We're going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump promised to do that. And I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk
support them
about
going into
people like
schools
Laken
and
Riley
churches.
who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce
But
the
that
law
also
everywhere
has
to protect
knock-on
Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it
What
has
the
a
hell?
chilling effect.
What is this conversation? If you allow law enforcement to go to a school to get criminals, if they happen to be there, then it has people are not going to want to send their kids to school because law enforcement may go in. So we're just going to leave the criminals and the rapists and the murderers in the school, and the people will feel safe. I can't, guys. This is a tough one. I didn't know what to expect. I did not pre-watch No pre-watching, guys. I'm trying. I'm not okay. I'm sorry, guys. Let me calm down because this is so idiotic. It hurts my brain. This lady is so confused about everything. She says the stupidest things. It is unfreaking believable.
In the
Effect on
churches,
illegal
you think
immigrants
the
coming
U.S.
into our
Conference
country.
of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S.
law
Conference
enforcement?
of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better. There's a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people in their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children shouldn't become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country
This is a
founded
unique
by.
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country.
Cook, in your face. I hope she felt like a slap just hit her in the face with JD Vance's words, because the country founded by immigrants. Like, who the hell cares? Like, I'm so tired. Guys, I'm so tired of these dumb radical leftists saying stupid things and as if it makes sense. What's country immigrants? So I guess we just leave the borders open forever. Just open the border and just let everybody in. Screw it. If we're a country founded by immigrants, why even have borders? Just leave the country open. Anybody could come in, and it's going to be a country of even more immigrants. Matter of fact, instead of millions of people coming in, let's make it billions. How about that?
Left literally at the airport this week were thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the United States government and were promised to come here. When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't.
Boom.
I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Boom! Look, stop playing with JD Vance. I'm so tired of this man. Look, I ain't got the patience today. I'm sorry, guys. Look, I ain't got the patience today because this lady, well, anytime they make these stupid claims, oh, well, they were properly vetted. Well, what about this guy? Well, I mean, it's just like one time. It's like, guys, they make so many excuses for so many bad things that happen. And then they want to say, well, what if you pardon a January 6er and then they go commit a crime? It's like, okay, well, what if you properly vetted some people and then they planning an attack to blow us the hell up? Or if they kill Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungary or so many other people with lesser known names, but there's tons of them. They don't care about none of that. These people just always make excuses and cover for the radical leftists. It's so annoying. It is so sickening. It is disgusting even to be such a contrarian on every single one. Every single thing that's been in this video, this lady has been a contrarian on. She ain't agreed about nothing. She hasn't given any leeway about nothing. She's talking about you passed executive orders for the economy, but most of them weren't about the economy. Some of them were, but not most of them. It's like you freaking SOB.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said, if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people?
Well, Margaret, I noticed
including those who committed violence.
Margaret, I noticed that you cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards in how sentences were applied to the J6 protesters versus other groups. What the president said consistently on the campaign is that he was going to look at a case-by-case basis.
This is blanket.
And that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases, and the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights. The president believes that. I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing...
So wait a minute. So a guy tases a police officer. He doesn't like kill him or anything, and he gets sentenced to 12 years in prison. And these people act like serving multiple years isn't long enough. He had to go through the full 12 years? You gotta be freaking kidding me.
How can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
Margaret, you're separating, there's an important issue here. There's what the people actually did on January the 6th, and we're not saying that everybody did everything perfectly. And then what did Merrick Garland's Department of Justice do in unjustly prosecuting well over 1,000 Americans in a week?
She don't care about that. You see how she didn't address that? She instead, oh, they treated the cops so bad. They shoved the stun gun into them. They tased them. It's like, what the hell do you think happens to people every day out here on the street? People get hit by batons, stun guns, they get punched in the face, they get knocked out, they get stabbed, all kinds of stuff happen to them. If something happens to police, who, by the way, again, the police attacked the protesters first. They were protesting originally first. Then, of course, if fighting ensues and violence ensues, hey, don't start nothing. Won't be nothing.
That was politically
Is
motivated.
violence like that against a police officer ever justified?
Oh, see, she don't want to talk about Merrick Garland. Okay.
Violence against a police officer is not justified, but that doesn't mean that you should have Merrick Garland's weaponized Department of Justice expose you to incredibly unfair process, to denial of constitutional rights, and frankly, to a double standard that was not applied to many people, including, of course, the Black Lives Matter rioters who killed over 24 people and never had the weight of a weaponized Department of Justice come against them. The pardon power is not just for people who are angels or people who are perfect. And of course, we love our law enforcement and want people to be peaceful with everybody, but especially with our good cops. That's a separate issue from what Merrick Garland's Department of Justice did. We rectified a wrong, and I stand by it.
I'm being told we're out of time, but
What I tell y'all, she didn't even want to talk about Merrick Garland, the double standard of the justice system, because she don't care. She don't give a damn about that. The radical left doesn't care. They love the weaponization of the justice system when they're doing it against conservatives. It's when you do it against the Democrats where all of a sudden it's a problem. Wow, what a freaking far leftist, propagandist radical. This is a prime example of why people don't want to believe the media, why they call it fake news, why I call it legacy fake news media, because this was totally ridiculous, a contrary to everything, ignores everything JD Vance says, puts words in his mouth over and over again, and inevitably, in an attempt to make him look like he's some sort of fraud or going back on his word, inevitably just makes herself look stupid and like she is a arm of the radical left. But I'm glad in the end that JD Vance ended up cooking and filleting the hell out of this woman. But those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate y'all watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
You should worry about reporting the news fairly, which you don't do when it comes to everything Trump.